I had arrived home from work about an hour prior, attempting to wind down and settle in for the night. The long day left me eager to relax, and I soon found myself sprawled across my bed, absent-mindedly flipping through TV channels, seeking something to occupy the evening hours. Outside, the wind whipped against the house, howling in a way that made the windows rattle faintly. Storms of this magnitude were rare in our region, and while I typically enjoyed the rain, there was something unsettling about the unpredictable bursts of lightning and deep rolling thunder that echoed across the neighborhood. Whenever the skies opened up like this, it always stirred a slight, inexplicable anxiety in me. About halfway through an old movie I wasn't paying much attention to, I heard a soft, distant sound coming from somewhere below me. It was subtle, almost like the faint groan of the house settling, but distinctly from downstairs, possibly the living room or kitchen. At first, I dismissed it entirely. Old houses often creak and shift with changes in weather, and storms tend to amplify every noise. But after a few minutes, that nagging discomfort started to build. There was something strange about the way the sound lingered, as if it wasn't quite finished. Despite trying to ignore it, curiosity won out, and I eventually rose from the bed to take a cautious look. Wandering the lower floor, I found nothing out of place. The furniture sat undisturbed, the doors were all locked, and aside from the storm battering the roof, everything seemed normal. Feeling a little foolish, I filled up my water bottle at the kitchen sink and headed back upstairs. No more than 10 minutes had passed before another noise broke through the din of the rain. This time it was unmistakable. I knew the sound immediately, the unmistakable crash of one of the living room lamps tipping over and hitting the wooden floor. The noise sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. That lamp was fragile, perched awkwardly on an end table near the sofa. On multiple occasions I had accidentally bumped into it, causing it to wobble precariously. However, it had never fallen on its own. I hesitated, convincing myself it was probably nothing but the vibrations of the wind rattling the house. Still, I found myself padding softly down the staircase, barefoot, heart thudding faintly in my chest. When I stepped into the living room, my suspicions were confirmed. The lamp lay sprawled across the floor, its bulb unbroken, but at an odd angle. I stooped down, picking it up and setting it back in its usual place. Yet the more I lingered, the more that gnawing sense of unease persisted. The storm outside, though fierce, hardly seemed powerful enough to shake the structure or topple objects. Something about the whole thing felt off, like I had walked into the middle of a scene that had been hastily reset. But without clear proof of anything strange, I forced myself to accept the simplest explanation and retreated upstairs. This time, I switched the TV to mute, letting the white noise of the rain fill the room. With nothing but the storm to focus on, I began to notice subtle variations in the way the rain sounded. Roughly 3/4 of an hour later, I was struck by how sharply the rain seemed to amplify. It wasn't just louder, it sounded closer, like it was no longer confined to the outside. I listened intently, noticing that the drumming of the rain felt oddly directional, almost as if it were bleeding through the walls or coming from somewhere within the house itself. I cracked open my bedroom door just enough to peer out, and instantly the sound surged in clarity. The rhythmic patter, unnervingly out of place, echoed faintly but persistently from below. The realization that it originated downstairs struck a chord of hesitation within me. Gripping the doorframe, I strained to listen, every nerve attuned to the faintest shift in the atmosphere. The sound, unsettling and almost melodic, lured me toward the hallway. Step by cautious step, I crept forward, each floorboard groaning softly beneath my weight. The dim corridor stretched ahead, illuminated only by the occasional flicker of lightning outside. At the very end, near the kitchen, lay the old storage closet, a relic of the house's past, its creaking door rarely disturbed. I knew, buried beneath stacks of forgotten belongings, a small window sat snugly against the far wall. I could count on one hand the number of times I had even glanced in its direction. The closer I inched, the louder the sound swelled, each droplet striking as though hurled with intent. My breath grew shallow, the air thick with the weight of anticipation. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but curiosity, or perhaps fear, tightened its grip. Pausing, heart hammering against my ribs, I hovered just long enough to question the sanity of what I was about to do. With a sudden jolt of resolve, I thrust the door open. A rush of frigid air enveloped me, coiling around my skin in icy tendrils. The window stood wide, yawning open, as if inviting the storm inside. Rain cascaded through the frame, pooling into dark, shimmering puddles beneath the scattered boxes. For a moment, I stood frozen, paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of it all. My gaze lingered on the window, tracing the edges as if searching for a reasonable explanation. The reality pressed down like a suffocating weight. I had not touched that window in more than 6 months. The thought of having left it ajar defied memory and logic. Trembling, I reached forward, dragging the window shut with a resounding thud that echoed through the empty house. As the downpour receded to a muffled patter behind the glass, silence reclaimed its dominion. Yet the stillness felt wrong, like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting. A creeping awareness settled in. The unsettling notion that I was not alone. My phone, an object that could tether me to help, remained upstairs, perched uselessly on my bed. The car keys, however, were within reach, just beyond the kitchen doorway. My thoughts twisted and tangled, debating the next move. The primal part of me urged escape, yet my legs refused to carry me with haste. Each motion was deliberate, measured, as though speed might awaken the unseen. I drifted toward the kitchen, steps feather-light, fingers curling around the cold metal of the keys the moment they came into view. Without daring to breathe, I pivoted toward the front door. The hallway stretched long and menacing, the end barely visible in the dimness. I had traversed no more than halfway when it happened. A thunderous cascade of footsteps exploded from above, crashing against the floorboards in rapid succession. They tore through the upstairs corridor, racing toward the stairwell with terrifying urgency. The sheer volume sent ice through my veins. Panic seized me. Rational thought disintegrated, replaced by the singular focus of escape. I lunged for the door, hands trembling violently as I wrestled with the lock. The footsteps bore down with unforgiving speed, echoing against the walls as if chasing directly behind me. Just as the lock yielded, the door burst open under my weight, propelling me into the storm. Rain clawed at my skin, but I didn't stop. I flung myself into the car, slammed the door and twisted the lock with finality. The downpour drummed relentlessly against the windshield as I backed away, my knuckles bone-white against the steering wheel. Through the corner of my eye, the house loomed, dark and unmoving. A fleeting impulse to glance back clawed at me, but I resisted. With trembling hands, I dialed the police, words spilling from my lips in uneven bursts. By the time officers arrived, the house had returned to its slumber. They found nothing amiss. No broken glass, no displaced objects, save for the damp stains beneath the closet window. A deeper inspection revealed an unsettling truth. The vibrations from the intruder's attempts to breach the window had likely toppled the fragile lamp in the living room, unraveling the mystery of its fall. Whoever had found their way inside lingered, concealed in the very walls I called home. Their reasons for being there remained shrouded in uncertainty. Perhaps they sought valuables, or perhaps they intended something far worse. The chilling thought that someone prowled the house mere feet from where I sat, oblivious, lingers like a shadow. Even now, the faintest creak sets me on edge, and sometimes in the quiet hours I swear I hear footsteps lingering just out of sight. If this story left you with chills, drop a comment below and let me know if you've ever experienced anything similar. And if you want more unsettling tales, don't forget to subscribe and join me for the next story.